Hello everyone. Welcome to Learn English Through Stories. Today's story is called The Lost Puppy. It is a heartwarming story about friendship, hope, and the kindness of strangers. As you listen, try to notice new vocabulary and natural English expressions. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Let's begin. It was a bright Saturday morning in the quiet town of Maplewood. The streets were peaceful, and birds were singing in the trees. Children laughed as they rode their bicycles, while neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles. It was the kind of morning that made everyone want to spend time outdoors. 12-year-old Ethan stepped into his backyard with a tennis ball in one hand. Beside him bounced Max, a cheerful golden retriever puppy with shiny fur and endless energy. Max had joined Ethan's family only 3 months earlier, but it already felt as if he had always been there. Every morning, Ethan and Max played the same game. Ethan would throw the tennis ball across the yard, and Max would run after it as fast as he could. Sometimes he caught it in the air, and other times he rolled over the grass before proudly carrying it back with his tail wagging. Ethan laughed every time Max returned the ball. "You're getting faster every day," he said, while gently rubbing the puppy's head. Max barked happily, as if he understood every single word. For Ethan, Max was much more than a pet. He was a loyal companion who waited for him after school, followed him around the house, and even slept beside his bed every night. Whenever Ethan felt lonely or worried, Max always seemed to know exactly how to comfort him. That morning, Ethan's mother opened the back door and smiled. "Boys," she called, "don't forget we're visiting Grandma this afternoon." "We'll be ready," Ethan replied, without taking his eyes off Max. His mother laughed. "Just don't get too dirty before we leave." "We'll try," Ethan answered with a grin. They continued playing for another 20 minutes. The warm sunlight covered the garden, and everything felt calm and peaceful. Ethan couldn't imagine that within a few minutes the happiest morning of the week would suddenly change. Without warning, a loud crash echoed from the street. A construction truck had accidentally dropped several heavy metal pipes onto the road. The sound was so sudden and powerful that it frightened everyone nearby. Max froze, his ears stood up, and his eyes grew wide with fear. Before Ethan could react, Max turned around and sprinted toward the open side gate. "Max!" Ethan shouted. The puppy disappeared onto the sidewalk. Ethan dropped the tennis ball and ran after him as quickly as he could. "Max, come back!" People walking nearby looked around, confused by the sudden shouting. Ethan reached the sidewalk just in time to see Max racing across the corner and disappearing between two houses. His heart began to pound. He had never seen Max run like that before. Ethan searched the next street, calling the puppy's name again and again. "Max! Max!" There was no answer. Only the sound of passing cars and rustling leaves filled the air. After nearly 15 minutes of searching, Ethan hurried back home, hoping Max had returned on his own. Instead, he found his parents standing outside with worried expressions. "Did you find him?" his father asked. Ethan slowly shook his head. "I almost caught him, but he kept running." His mother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll find him," she said softly. "But what if he's scared?" Ethan asked. "What if he doesn't know how to come home?" His father remained calm. Then we'll help him find his way back." Within minutes, the whole family began searching in different directions. Ethan walked through every street he knew, checking parks, playgrounds, and small walking paths. Every time he saw another golden dog in the distance, his heart filled with hope. But every time, it wasn't Max. Hours passed. The bright morning slowly turned into afternoon. Ethan's excitement had been replaced by fear and guilt. "If I had closed the gate," he whispered to himself. "If I had held his leash." His father overheard him. "Ethan," he said gently, "this wasn't your fault. Max was frightened by something unexpected. These things can happen, but I should have protected him." "You'll help bring him home," his father replied. "That's what matters now." Those words gave Ethan a little strength. Back at home, Ethan's mother searched through her phone for recent pictures of Max. "We'll make missing posters," she suggested. His father nodded. "The sooner people know, the better." Together they chose the clearest photograph, a picture of Max sitting in the garden with his tongue hanging out and his bright brown eyes looking directly at the camera. Ethan looked at the photo for several seconds. "Please come home," he whispered. An hour later, colorful posters were hanging on telephone poles, shop windows, bus stops, and community notice boards. The posters read, "Lost puppy name, Max breed, golden retriever age, 8 months friendly but may be frightened. If you see him, please call immediately." As the family walked around placing the posters, many neighbors stopped to help. Mrs. Wilson, who lived across the street, promised to check her backyard. Mr. Carter said he would ask the local delivery drivers to keep an eye out. A group of teenagers riding bicycles offered to search the nearby park. Even people Ethan had never spoken to before wished him good luck. For the first time that day, Ethan realized how caring his neighborhood truly was. As evening approached, the sky turned orange and pink. The streets became quieter. Families returned to their homes. Lights began to appear in the windows, but Max was still missing. Ethan sat silently on the front porch, staring at the empty street. His mother brought him a warm cup of hot chocolate. "You should eat something," she said. "I'm not hungry." She sat beside him. "I know today has been difficult. I just want Max to come home." "So do we." After a long silence, Ethan looked toward the road. What if someone finds him? His mother smiled gently. "Then we'll thank them with all our hearts. And what if nobody does?" She squeezed his hand. "We're not giving up." Just then, a car slowly stopped in front of their house. A woman stepped out, holding one of the missing posters. "I think," she said carefully, "I may have seen your puppy this afternoon." Ethan jumped to his feet. His heart began racing once again. "Where?" The woman pointed toward the old walking trail near the edge of Maplewood Forest. "I couldn't get close to him," she explained, "but I'm almost certain it was the same puppy." Ethan looked at his parents. Hope returned to his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this was the clue they had been waiting for. The next morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise. For a brief moment, he forgot everything that had happened the day before. Then he looked at the empty dog bed beside his own bed. and the painful reality returned. Max was still missing. He quickly got dressed and walked downstairs. His parents were already in the kitchen, preparing sandwiches, water bottles, and a small backpack. "We're going back to the forest," his father said. "We'll stay as long as it takes." Ethan nodded. "I'm ready." Outside, the air was cool and fresh. A light mist covered the ground, and the rising sun painted the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. It was quiet, except for the sound of birds welcoming the new day. When they arrived at the entrance of Maplewood Forest, they were surprised to see several neighbors waiting for them. Mrs. Wilson carried a bag filled with dog treats. Mr. Carter held a flashlight and a map of the walking trails. The teenagers who had offered to help the day before had brought their bicycles so they could search different paths more quickly. One of them smiled at Ethan. "We're going to find him." Ethan felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you," he replied sincerely. His father unfolded the map. "We'll split into small groups," he explained. "Stay on the marked trails and call immediately if anyone finds fresh footprints or hears barking." Everyone agreed. The search began. Ethan walked slowly along a narrow forest path with his mother. Every few minutes, he called Max's name. "Max!" His voice echoed through the tall trees. No answer. Only the gentle wind moved the leaves above them. They searched behind fallen logs, beside small streams, and under thick bushes. At one point, Ethan noticed paw prints in the soft mud. "Look!" he shouted. His mother hurried over. The prints were about the right size. Hope filled Ethan's heart. They followed the tracks for several hundred meters until they suddenly disappeared on a patch of dry ground. "We lost them," Ethan said quietly. His shoulders dropped with disappointment. His mother knelt beside him. "Finding these footprints means we're getting closer." "I hope so." Around noon, everyone's phones rang at the same time. It was Ethan's father asking all the search groups to meet near the old wooden bridge. When they arrived, a local park ranger was waiting. He introduced himself with a friendly smile. "My name is Daniel. I heard about your missing puppy." "We've been searching since yesterday," Ethan explained. The ranger nodded. "I actually saw a young golden retriever near the river early this morning." Ethan's eyes widened. "Was he wearing a blue collar?" "I couldn't get close enough to tell," Daniel admitted. "But he looked frightened. Every time I moved toward him, he ran deeper into the trees." Ethan's father looked at the ranger. "Could you show us where?" "Of course." The group followed Daniel through a narrow trail that led toward the riverbank. The path became steeper and the trees grew thicker. After nearly 20 minutes of walking, Daniel suddenly stopped. "This is where I saw him." Everyone looked around carefully. There were fresh paw prints near the water. Mrs. Wilson bent down. "They look recent." Ethan's heart began beating faster. "Max!" he shouted as loudly as he could. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, far away in the distance, a faint bark echoed through the forest. Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" Ethan whispered. Another bark. This time it sounded slightly louder. "It came from over there," Mr. Carter said, pointing toward a hill covered with bushes. The entire group hurried in that direction. Branches brushed against their clothes as they climbed higher. Ethan could hardly breathe from excitement. Every step made him believe he was getting closer to Max. Suddenly, another dog appeared from behind a tree. Ethan ran toward it. "Max!" The dog turned around. It wasn't Max. It belonged to another family enjoying a morning hike. Ethan stopped running. His smile disappeared. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. The family understood immediately. "We hope you find him," the father said kindly. "Thank you." Although disappointed, Ethan refused to give up. As the afternoon passed, the volunteers continued searching every corner of the forest. Some checked abandoned cabins, others looked around picnic areas and hiking trails. The teenagers rode their bicycles between different entrances, asking every visitor if they had seen a golden retriever. Back in town, Ethan's mother received several phone calls after people noticed the missing posters. Each call sounded promising at first. "I think I saw your puppy near the supermarket," another caller said. "There was a golden dog near the school this morning." Each time the family rushed to the location. Each time it turned out to be another dog. By evening, everyone was exhausted. The volunteers gathered once again near the forest entrance. "I'm sorry," Daniel, the park ranger, said. "We covered almost every trail today." Mrs. Wilson sighed. "We'll continue tomorrow." The teenagers nodded. "We're not stopping." Ethan looked at every person standing around him. None of them had been forced to help, yet they had spent their entire weekend searching for Max. He felt deeply grateful. "Thank you," he said. "I don't know how I'll ever repay all of you." Mrs. Wilson smiled warmly. "You don't have to. We're neighbors, and neighbors help each other." Those simple words stayed with Ethan as he drove home with his parents. That night, rain began to fall. Ethan stood by his bedroom window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. His biggest worry wasn't himself. It was Max. "Where are you?" he whispered. "I hope you're safe." Just then, his father's phone rang. The room fell completely silent. His father answered immediately. "Hello?" A calm voice spoke from the other end. "Good evening. This is Green Valley Animal Shelter. We believe we may have found your puppy." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. He looked at his parents, unable to speak. Could it really be Max? Or was this another false hope? For a moment, no one moved. Ethan stared at his father, hoping he had heard the words correctly. His father continued listening carefully before asking, "Can you describe the puppy?" The voice on the phone replied, "He's a young golden retriever. He was found near the east side of Maplewood Forest. He's wearing a blue collar, but the name tag is scratched, so we can't read it clearly." Ethan could hardly breathe. "That's Max," he whispered. His father thanked the shelter employee and ended the call. "They close in 45 minutes, he said. "Let's go." Within seconds, the family was in the car. The drive felt longer than ever before. Rain tapped against the windshield, and Ethan kept looking out the window. His mind was filled with questions. What if it's not Max? What if someone else has already adopted him? What if he's hurt? His mother gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "We'll know soon." No one spoke for the rest of the journey. When they arrived at Green Valley Animal Shelter, a kind woman greeted them at the front desk. "You must be Ethan's family," she said with a warm smile. "My name is Sarah." Ethan nodded quickly. "Is he here?" Sarah smiled. "I think so." She led them down a quiet hallway lined with clean kennels. Some dogs wagged their tails as visitors walked past, while others rested peacefully on soft blankets. Ethan's heart beat faster with every step. Then, from the end of the hallway, a familiar bark echoed through the room. "Woof!" Ethan stopped walking. He knew that bark. He would recognize it anywhere. "Max!" he shouted. Almost instantly, a golden retriever jumped to his feet. His tail wagged wildly. His ears stood up. The puppy barked again, louder this time, and ran toward the front of the kennel. "It's him!" Ethan cried. Tears filled his eyes as Sarah opened the kennel door. The moment the door swung open, Max raced straight toward Ethan. The puppy jumped into his arms, covering his face with happy kisses, while his tail wagged so hard that his whole body seemed to shake with excitement. Ethan laughed through his tears. "I missed you so much." Max barked happily, as if he were saying, "I missed you too." Even Ethan's father, who rarely showed strong emotions, smiled with relief. His mother wiped away a tear. "It's wonderful to see you together again." After a few minutes, Sarah explained what had happened. Yesterday evening, one of our volunteers received a phone call from a local farmer. "He found your puppy hiding inside an old storage shed near his field." Ethan listened carefully. "Was Max hurt?" "Fortunately, no," Sarah replied. "He was frightened and hungry, but otherwise he was healthy." She smiled at Max, who was happily sitting beside Ethan. "The farmer gave him food and water before bringing him here this morning." Ethan felt incredibly grateful. "Can we thank him?" Sarah nodded. "I'm sure he'd appreciate that." Before leaving the shelter, Ethan asked one more question. "How did you know he belonged to us?" Sarah pointed toward the missing poster hanging on a bulletin board near the entrance. "One of our volunteers remembered seeing this poster at the supermarket. When the farmer brought in the puppy, we compared the picture. The blue collar matched. So did his friendly personality." Ethan smiled. "Those posters really helped." "They certainly did," Sarah replied. "Never underestimate the power of a caring community." The following afternoon, Ethan and his parents visited the farmer who had rescued Max. His name was Mr. Harrison. He welcomed them with a friendly smile. "So this is the famous puppy." Max wagged his tail and happily walked toward him. Ethan held out a small gift basket filled with homemade cookies, fresh fruit, and a handwritten thank you card. "We wanted to thank you," Ethan said. "You saved my best friend." Mr. Harrison smiled gently. "I didn't save him. I simply gave him a safe place until the right people came." He looked down at Max. "Sometimes all someone needs is a little kindness." Those words stayed in Ethan's heart. A few days later, life slowly returned to normal. Max was back to chasing tennis balls in the backyard. This time, however, Ethan always made sure the gate was securely closed before they started playing. Max also wore a stronger collar with a new identification tag and a small GPS tracker. "It might seem like a small thing," Ethan's father said, "but it helps us keep him safe." Ethan agreed. "We learned a lot this week." His mother smiled, and so did Max. The puppy barked happily, making everyone laugh. The following weekend, the neighborhood organized a small picnic in the community park. Everyone who had helped search for Max was invited. Children played games on the grass, while adults shared homemade food and talked about the adventure. Mrs. Wilson laughed. "I don't think Maplewood has ever worked together this well." Mr. Carter nodded. "It reminded us that we're more than neighbors. We're a community." The teenagers who had searched on their bicycles proudly gave Max a brand new red ball. The puppy immediately picked it up and ran around the park, making everyone laugh. For the first time in days, there were no worried faces, only smiles. As the sun slowly began to set, Ethan looked around at everyone gathered in the park. A week earlier, he had felt completely alone. Now he realized something important. When difficult moments arrive, kindness often appears from unexpected places. People who barely know you may still choose to help. A simple phone call, a missing poster, a kind volunteer, a caring farmer, or a neighbor willing to spend hours searching. Each small act can make an enormous difference. Ethan hugged Max tightly. "I'm never taking you for granted again." Max looked up at him with his bright brown eyes and gently wagged his tail. It was as if he understood every word. Sometimes the happiest endings are not just about finding what was lost. They are about discovering how much people truly care for one another. And that is a lesson Ethan would carry with him for the rest of his life. Thank you for listening to Learn English Through Stories. We hope you enjoyed this story while improving your English. Remember, every story teaches us new vocabulary and helps us build confidence. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for another heartwarming English story. See you in the next story.